What celebrity suffered the worst fall from grace? Allison Mack, Bill Cosby, and Jared Fogle are all in jail. I think fame to jail is a pretty big fall from grace, with Cosby the clear winner for falling furthest. It's one thing to lose your game. It's another thing entirely to lose your freedom. I was disgusted to read about Allison Mack. I grew up with Smallville in my teens, so my crush was always her/Chloe. Has Mack been jailed yet? Geoffrey Jones, best known for Mr. Rooney in Ferris Bueller and Mr. Deeds in Beetlejuice. He has had numerous problems with profession of child pornography, solicitation of child pornography, problems with registering as a sex offender and updating his sex offender registration. And finally problems with his employers where people were invited to be on set but parents and visitors were up in arms when they were not formally notified he was a sex offender and on set. How is he still working, WTF? It was really weird when he showed up in the recent Deadwood movie which just came out in 2019. Jones was an ensemble character during the run of the show in the early 2000s before all of his sex offender stuff came to light. It seemed like he would not have been invited back for the reunion movie for obvious reasons. Not a big star by any means, but Mark Salling. Charged due to child pornography and then he committed suicide before he could be sentenced. There's a line in Glee where his character says in response to "Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Probably dead, or in jail, or both." Didn't age well. Things did not go well for the cast of Glee. Jimmy Savile. There's really no contest. The guy raped hundreds of children and even had sex with corpses. He was the first to come to mind for me. Huge kids entertainer, given unrestricted access to kids in hospitals because of his charity associations, and used that to abuse hundreds upon hundreds of children. Sure, he's dead, but his crimes were so freaking numerous that is a scandal that he was able to abuse just so many children, and enabled to do so for so long, and not get caught. Posthumous fall from grace for sure. Or Rolf Harris, because Jimmy was dead before the allegations came out, even though people claimed it was widely known. But I used to love Animal Hospital as a child, and my grandma had a book of piano music of his songs. He's turned so nasty since being exposed to. O.J. Simpson, all-time football great, cultivated a public persona as lovable nice guy in TV and movies after his playing career, and then the real O.J. was revealed to the public. O.J. and Cosby are the gold medal finalists for this question. The real O.J. was revealed to the public when his domestic violence was public years before he murdered 2 people. The public shrugged. Murdering his ex-wife and her friend goes beyond revealing the real O.J. That's something else entirely. In the sci-fi/fantasy realm, Marion Zimmer Bradley experienced a pretty big posthumous fall from grace. It turned out she'd sexually abused her daughter from age 3 to 13 and ignored or actively supported her husband in molesting numerous boys. Ooh, I never heard that. And that makes some of the morally ambiguous sex scenes in her books even grosser. Ugh. It's so much worse than that. But what you posted is true. Bill Cosby. It's kinda crazy that it took so long, too. Bobcat Goldthwait had been making Cosby rape remarks for years. On the upside for him, Jell-O is a common food in prison. Any of the child celebrities that were never given a chance at a normal life and ended up getting chewed up and spit out by the industry. Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears come to mind, but there are many. Mara Wilson managed to escape once she realized acting wasn't for her. She's one of the lucky ones. Gotta say it. Amanda Bynes. Aaron Carter belongs on this list. The purest teeny bopper heartthrob back in the day. Now, Nick Carter has to get a restraining order against him for threatening to hurt his kids. He's clearly dealing with meth addiction and the lowest of his lows. He did a clip where him and a friend are driving around, hyping up Aaron. They go through a drive-thru and Aaron gives the girl a concert tee with his face on it. She had no idea who he was. This is the first time I've heard or thought about Aaron Carter since the mid-2000s or so. I figured like a lot of pop stars, he had a fairly successful run, then just quietly bowed out with his money and lived a normal life. Wow, had no idea this is what became of him. Saw Aaron once at the bar I worked at back in LA a few years ago. It was very clear that he was on more than just alcohol. Prior to that job, I had worked next to the restaurant that his then GF worked at with zero knowledge of her history with him. She was actually a very sweet girl. Just looked her up and looks like she's getting married in a few months to a relatively normal person. Happy for her. Jared Fogle fame out of nowhere to convinced pedophile. As someone who lives in his old hometown, it apparently wasn't a huge surprise. He lost the weight because he was stalking a high school girl who worked at that Subway. He also rented a second apartment to store all the porn he was selling to local college students. Started and ended with him trying to get into a smaller pair of pants. Danny Masterson. That 70s show was a constant joy since childhood, but after hearing Leah Remini interview a few of his victims, can't even stomach the thought of watching it. Also T.J. Miller, for similar reasons. Oscar Pistorius killing his GF. I went to high school with him. He was a final year prefect when I was in third year. I watched him throttle and hang a friend of mine over a second-story balcony for asking if he could leave detention 5 minutes early to catch the last bus. Oscar Pistorius was a violent maniac long before he shot his girlfriend. It was amazing to me that Pistorius was willing to claim that he was so pants-shittingly cowardly that it would be reasonable for him to scream and fire a gun into his bathroom just on the mere suspicion that there could possibly be a burglar in there. Worst defense ever. Jimmy Savile. It's not even a contest. Like seriously. There are some good suggestions here, but no one holds a candle to Jimmy Savile. He went from cherished TV personality, a well-known philanthropist, an OBE who raised a lot of money for charity, to a serial child rapist and pedophile and just a horrible man who had abused children for decades. Including kids he was supposed to help on his TV show, or sick children he met through his charity. Sadly, it only broke after his death. But it shone a light on it and the network he had created to keep up his disgusting antics. Because of his charity work, he even once received a key to a children's hospital, because he was such a good chap. Seeing pictures of the man just makes my skin crawl. Britney Spears. Poor Britney. I know it's said often, but when I was a kid, I thought her head shaving and all that was really crazy. Now that I'm 27, I 100% am surprised she made it that long without snapping and that she hasn't snapped again. Out of all the ladies of the 2000s who were hounded by paparazzi, I think Britney had it the worst, and undeservedly so. Such talent, and such a genuine soul who was abused throughout her whole career up until this day by the people who are supposed to care for her. Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman. As far as I'm concerned, people like Bill Cosby more than earned their fall. Paul Reubens had an undeserved fall. I always thought it was odd he was arrested for jerking off in a porno theater. I mean, isn't that why those places exist? If it was just some random movie theater, sure, but it's like being arrested for gambling in a casino. I'm not saying you should have your dick out in public. But FFS, it was in a porno theater, not a McDonald's Land Jungle Gym. There's a cock the size of your forearm on screen and we're seriously going to ruin Reubens' life for pulling his pee-wee? Chris Benoit. Great WWE wrestler. Then he killed his wife and son. Autopsy report showed his brain was like that of a 70-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Then WWE went and deleted everything that had to do with him. They didn't want him associated with them after that. He did all that wrestling, got so damaged he killed his family and WWE just wiped him out. I remember that shit happening. It was a weird spiral. I remember him completely breaking down on TV at Eddie Guerrero's memorial, and 2 years later he did what he did. Friday night he was a fallen hero, Tuesday he was a monster, and McMahon still takes zero responsibility for his and his company's part in this kinda shit. Silent film star Fatty Arbuckle was accused of raping and accidentally killing actress Virginia Rapay. Allegedly in his attempt to rape her, he squashed her to death with his great girth. He was tried 3 times and was eventually acquitted. Rapay most likely died from appendicitis. His career limped along until he died of a heart attack in 1933. I lived for a short time in Fatty's former home in Santa Monica. It was a stop for the Morbid Tours bus in LA. I'd be on my porch drinking coffee in the morning and an open-sided van with a bunch of gawking Midwesterners would pull up and block traffic while a recent Midwestern transplant barked semi-facts at them over a loudspeaker before moving on. They'd take disposable camera pics of me in my pajamas. It was a real hoot. Are these real names? WTF? Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.